Hello and welcome to Cage Fighting. It's your main man, Andy Gillard here. Hope everyone's doing well in this summer. Wonderful bit of heat wave, but it's not too... I'm going to start again because I had no idea what the fuck I was going to say there.
It's staining.
Hello and welcome to Cage Fighting. It's your main man, Andy Gillard here. Hope everyone's doing well in the world right now.
Hi everybody, Matt Guy here. Summer solstice is upon us. It only gets worse from here. Hello everybody.
Summer solstice indeed. I'm amazed with you and your ways that you hadn't watched any Glastonbury though.
Who, me?
Yeah.
Nah, there's unfairly probably, but Glastonbury has a bit of a bad rap for me. It's full of champagne socialists and Eton toffs. It's just not. It doesn't look like my bag at all. I'd rather go to Download or something.
It's the middle class version of a V weekend at fucking in Stafford, isn't it? It's just all pop bollocks. It's not what a festival's about.
I saw some young blood character, and he started bouncing on the stage and saying, "Well, you got ADHD, yeah, you mate." And I think, well, and then he was like gurning like some kind of Joker figure. I thought, no, this ain't my bag. So I turned it over and I was watching someone else I hadn't heard anything of. But there we are.
I have just prior to this downloaded the 80-minute Jamie T set, which I'm very, very, very much looking forward to watching. So maybe I'll change my mind in 80 minutes' time from watching.
But before we get to that, Matt, I think what we're going to do is we're going to talk about Tom Cruise this week. Off the back of Maverick surpassing the $1 billion mark, why not talk about Tom Cruise? We've got a dozen questions that I'm going to ask you, and we will work through his back catalogue, his star profile, discuss the good and less than good, and let's be honest, flat out batshit crazy of Tom Cruise. So the first question that I'm going to bring to you is, what is the first film that you remember seeing of Tom Cruise's? Stu?
I think it was Top Gun. I've got a feeling it was, because I've seen Top Gun so many times. We've talked about it for the last month or so anyway. But it was one of them films, like RoboCop and Die Hard and all these things, that was just on around that kind of... around my childhood, but it was like, say early 90s, so I was, 7, 8, 9, round about that kind of time. Them kind of films, and Predator as well. All them kind of the proper classic films were all on. They must have been on video because there was no ITV2. And they wouldn't have been on normal ITV or 4, would they? So, and we didn't get Telewest cable TV for Americans. We didn't get that until, I think, 94, 5. So if they were on the movie channels there, maybe. But that kind of genre of film was always on in the background at some point in someone's house. So it must have been the VHS revolution. So I'm guessing it was Top Gun. I mean, my first memory of watching it properly was the first Mission Impossible in 96. That was when it first kind of clicked in my head. I thought, oh, this guy's all right. And then I went back and watched Top Gun again and kind of appreciated it more than I would as a child. So, yeah, bend of the rules, but 2 answers.
Top Gun feels like the perfect sort of bank holiday, Sunday evening kind of a film. Something that'd always be on TV around that time. You'd have Bond on during the day, and then you'd have Top Gun maybe at 6 o'clock.
Roger Moore Bond as well.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. Matt, what's the first recollection you've got of a Cruise film?
I think I would have seen Top Gun, but not have been old enough to remember it. So the one I can categorically say was the first I saw was Minority Report. And it would have felt like at the time, I remember vividly feeling at the time, like this is the most advanced state-of-the-art technology I've ever seen in a film. And this is the craziest, sci-fi-est film in my entire life, concepts of which I couldn't grasp. And then watching it since, it's not quite that really, but I remember feeling like it was a proper romp at the time, like that gun that you have to flick around to fire like the sonar bolt or whatever it is
Yeah.
out of there was just proper cool at the time. And I just remember it being properly up, in my wheelhouse and up my street. That film when I saw it when I was younger.
Did feel like that was quite a big deal. I remember when it came out, it was just checked 2002 when it came out, and obviously with it being Spielberg behind it, it came with quite a lot of momentum when it came over here, and it was something of it kind of was groundbreaking because it felt like it was the first of a new wave of sci-fi. I haven't watched it for so long. I don't know if it stands up, but yeah, I think that's a good place to start with him. With me, I'd go back a little bit to Interview with a Vampire was the first time I saw Tom Cruise. Because even as a kid, I always loved horrors and all that kind of stuff. I remember watching Bram Stoker's Dracula. I lent it off my friend's sister, and I hated that film. It was so bad. But like I'd have been, 13, 14 at the time, I pretended to really like it because it was a better vampire. And then went on to Interview with the Vampire, which I watched like time and again. And again, it's probably one I haven't seen for the best part of 30 years now. But I remember loving it at the time and thinking it was like this really moody, deep and introspective film because it was about vampires, and vampires are generally the moody teenagers of the horror world. And I think that's what I was channeling at the time. I imagine now it's really airy-fairy and shit, but at the time, I absolutely loved Interview with the Vampire. It was a great movie.
I probably haven't seen it for when did it come out? 94, something like that.
94, I think.
Yeah. So, no, I wouldn't have seen that at the cinema. It must have been. It must have been that. It would have been on like Sky Premiere. I've got a feeling that's got the kind of. It's got that kind of feel about it.
Yeah.
I've probably seen it once ever, and I don't think I've seen it. Yeah, I can't remember seeing it again.
No, it's not worth the rewatch. I don't think now, but at the
it's
time,
never a good sign, is it?
So that was the first film. What was the latest film of theirs that you've seen? I think if we take Maverick off the table, because obviously we discussed that last time out. So what's the last film that you saw with Tom Cruise in? It doesn't have to be like his most recent film. It can be one from time ago. But the last film of his that you watched, Matt?
It was not that long ago. It's not the most recent chronologically or anything, but I watched War of the Worlds relatively recently. It is a film. It exists. It's one of these where it's an answer to a question later on, but it's flawed, but it's not a total failure either.
It's a swing, but I'm not sure if it's a miss. Yeah, I know where you're coming from with that.
It's a goal. It's a goal mouth scramble and a tap in, basically. Like it's you know what I mean. A right back who gets 0 goals a season scores. That's the best way I could describe it.
Yeah, just fumbles it over the line.
Yeah,
Stu, what's the latest that you've seen?
Other than Top Gun again before going to watch Maverick, which is kind of cheating. I looked at this and I thought it's been a long time because I haven't watched the first Mission Impossible, and the second one is amazingly the only ones I've ever seen, even for me. So I've got them all there. I've bought them all now to watch in preparation for the last two. Next year it comes out now.
Yes, it is. The first part's out next year, and then the second part's out the year after, I believe.
Yeah, so I've got a bit of time with that one, which I know exactly that they're right up my street as well, and I should have watched them. I mean, I might have seen 3. I can't remember if I have. So looking back through the IMDb things, and amazingly, it's Rock of Ages, 10 years ago, and
has it really been that long?
2012. I love that film, and I never had having a bad word said about it. It rendered the Glee, the height of the Glee phase, and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, it's not brilliant, of course it's not, but it's a lot of fun, and it's obviously we'll get into it with some questions later on as well. But yeah, I remember I went to watch it, and then I bought the Blu-ray as soon as it came out, and I've watched it multiple times since. And not for a while. So that's going on the list for. That's a perfect summer film as well. It's just cheery.
We'll see. For me, the last films I saw. So yesterday, in preparation for this, there was a few films of his that I just wanted to watch because I'd never got around to seeing them. So I watched Risky Business and The Colour of Money. The Colour of Money I didn't realise was a sequel to The Hustler, but I really enjoyed it. And Newman in that film is fantastic. Like, he's such a great actor that I don't think he's in enough conversations for like the greatest of all time, because he's up there with the best of them. It's absolutely superb. And this young cocky prick that was Tom Cruise at the time was perfect in that role as this I know better than everyone, even though I don't know anything outside of my tiny little world. Really enjoyed that movie. And the other one, Risky Business, was not the film I wanted it to be. The only recollection I have of Risky Business before this is there's an episode of Saved by the Bell where Screechy's mom's Elvis statue gets broken and he has to repair it, and they do the dance to one of the songs like he does at the beginning. And I thought this was going to be a bit like Ferris Bueller's Day Off. And it sort of was, but it was the most low-key version of Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Like, there was just no peaks and troughs. It was just a slow plod throughout the film. I was really disappointed. I wanted it to be really fun and upbeat in that John Hughes style of 80s cinema, and it really wasn't. So I felt quite let down at the end of that one. So as an actor, what is it that you like about Tom Cruise? What does he bring to the table that you enjoy watching? Stu?
He's fun. He doesn't take. I mean, there's a few films where he's at proper films where he's not just jumping around and explosions and whatever. He's got a bit of everything, and obviously, as a very straight man, you can quite actually say that, yeah, he's a very attractive guy, and that helps. You ain't looking like Norman Lamont on the screen, am you? So I don't know where that's come from.
You say you're a very straight man, Stu, but I remember when we went to see Martin Kemp, and the doe eyes that you were giving him were incredible.
Yeah, but look how good he looked though then, and how he looks better now than I do now. Whatever age he is, but yeah, he's obviously he's got the looks on his side, but it's that smile as well. He's got that kind of smile that it's so infectious that it makes you smile.
That damn smile.
That damn smile. That's the title of the episode. Yeah, he's just got an infectious personality about him, and I kind of like that he for the most part he puts everything into everything he does, and he seems like well, apart from the Scientology stuff, he seems to be a generally nice bloke as well. Where you see things like the Curry House thing in Birmingham last year, and like stories like that, and how he did like a little bit for Channel 4 F1 as well, around promoting Top Gun Maverick, and it just taking himself off and not taking himself too seriously. There's a lot of people who, of his stature, like you wouldn't get Tom Hanks doing that kind of thing, really. So it's always one of them things which I was kind of amazed that it had been 10 years since I'd watched a film of his through choice. But yeah, he's just got an infectious personality that it just draws me in. I just like the guy.
I did not expect this to be the coming out episode of Stu Paul. I get what you mean, though. Sorry, carry on, Matt.
Speaking of his that damn smile that ruined it all for Stu, I swear, very early on in his career, he's one tough.
Yeah.
Was directly in line with his philtrum.
Yeah.
Which is the weirdest fucking thing. If you see a picture of it, it's weird as hell. And I don't know how a dentist rectifies that. How Britt Baker DMD would have what she would have done to rectify that.
Yeah, he's definitely got like the whole veneers and all that shit, hasn't he? I think to get it, because it looks properly off kilter, doesn't it? When you look at someone with a tooth in the middle of the face, it's weird. But I do get what Stu was saying. Like, he has got this star presence in everything that he does, good, bad, indifference. He does draw you into his performances, I think. I mean, we'll come to it in a bit. I'm not sure whether or not it's a good or a bad thing because I do feel like a lot of it is very samey. But if it's something that connects with you, you will enjoy all of his films.
Mm.
So I think when it works perfectly for him. Matt, what do you like about Cruise?
Well, it's versatility, but you know, he can play the arrogant heel, or he can play the lovable rogue, or he can play the hero. He doesn't, as to my memory, play the villain that often, but you know, he can. Um, he's a very stable hand at everything. You know, he's a jack of all trades, really. But you know what they say, jack of all trades, and I'm sure that's probably all of our points later on in the episode. He's a good hand. To shoe in another wrestling reference, he's a more entertaining Lance Storm, isn't he?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, he's
He knows
a good
the
hand.
fundamentals.
Yeah, absolutely. And he does it
Yeah.
well, but that one of his biggest strengths is also his biggest flaws.
Absolutely. So speaking of his strengths, what is your best? What's the best performance that you think he has put to celluloid or digital as it is now? Matt, what's your favourite performance from Thomas?
Well, there's a favourite and best, but well, to be fair, they're the same. But Rain Man for me. It's a film that deserves all the plaudits it gets, and it's got all the plaudits for a reason. It's an excellent performance from him, completely believable as well, because the range of emotions that he goes through in that film are entirely what I think the majority of people would go through in his scenario if they were that person. And it's completely believable. And is there nothing more powerful in film than being something that's relatable to the audience? And that's exactly what he does in Rain Man. You know, Rain Man isn't as good without Dustin Hoffman. I appreciate that completely. But Tom Cruise, you know, he really makes that film. It gives not the heart, but the soul maybe of the film. If Dustin Hoffman gives it the heart.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point actually, because I think you're watching the film through Tom Cruise's eyes, aren't you?
Mm-hmm.
Really, I think he's our conduit into the movie, because obviously Dustin Hoffman's character is difficult, I suppose. It's difficult to identify with him, whereas you can do it quite easily with Tom Cruise, and he really draws you into that movie through his performance. He's absolutely wonderful. I'd got Rain Man down, but I knew you was going to say it, so obviously I had a backup answer, and the backup answer is Collateral. As you said to the previous question, he doesn't do a lot of bad guys. Like, he's mostly the hero in everything he does. So Collateral was the first time where he played a psychotic serial killer, and he was still believable. He had that that otherworldliness to him that he brought to this role, but he really underplayed it, which is not something he's often known to do. I feel like he tends to lean into it and give the larger than life performances. Whereas with this one, I feel like he reined it in somewhat, because if you're going to be a sniper, a hitman for someone, you can't be this big flash, showy dickhead. So instead, it was a more restrained performance, which is not what I associate with Tom Cruise. I think it was all the better for it. And I do think that Jamie Foxx really helped him. Much like you said with Dustin Hoffman, I feel that Tom Cruise's best performance comes alongside a really strong performance from a supporting actor. And Jamie Foxx, I mean, he was Oscar nominated for his performance in that. He was exceptionally good.
I think it's a massive sleeper film, though. That I reckon Joe Public doesn't know it exists, which is a shame, because it's a very enjoyable film.
I remember at the time there was quite a lot of hype around it, and then I don't think I've heard anyone mention it for like the last 15 years. Like, it's just completely vanished. Stu?
It was Raymond and Collateral. I think for what you said, being a flashy dickhead, that's kind of what he starts off as in Rain Man. You kind of get that feeling about him being, he's been what is he? What are they called? Like yuppie? Is that the right word?
Yeah.
He's a bit like one of them, and he's kind of, and it's a side of him that you don't see very often, which is what I've got listed later. You kind of like to see him in more actual just dramas, because he can do it and he's more than capable of doing it. Obviously, you could probably see that later on in his life when he can't be jumping over planes and stuff anymore. and he's got to do something else. But he does seem to have the range to do these kind of things. But Rain Man was just stand out without a shadow of a doubt. There's a reason why.
Absolutely.
And I think what you said about him playing off at other people. Look at the amount of people who've been nominated for Best Supporting Actor when he's been the main actor as well. And maybe he's like the Andy Keogh of the film world.
Yeah, that's it. So that's the good. What's the shit? What's his worst performance that he's given? Mine is going to be Rock of Ages. I'm sorry, Stu.
Oh!
It was too much. It was so over the top, and it just did not work for me on any level. I didn't enjoy the film. I didn't enjoy the experience, and I thought he was particularly bad in the movie. I don't know what it was. I just didn't find him believable, even as this sort of aged rock star, which he kind of is in real life. It just didn't work. I think it's because he's a little bit too clean cut, and then to see him with that long hair and trying to be all suave and cool, and it was just a big no from me all the way throughout. And I like musicals. I don't like jukebox musicals, so that might be why that didn't work for me. But I did love Glee, so I don't know. It just never got into my heart quite like I wanted it to.
The whole film's over the top, though.
It is, but it just didn't work for me. And I know musicals are supposed to be like that, but for whatever reason, I just couldn't rock out to it, unfortunately. Stu, what's his worst performance in your eyes?
War of the Worlds. Easy. And you can't really blame him for that. I mean, he ain't got a lot to work with, admittedly. But he just doesn't look arsed at all, like most people on that film didn't. And I remember watching that, and I'd forgot like how it ends and stuff. And I remember bursting out laughing. And there were those people who've been obviously fans of it for years and so many different versions of it and the radio playing, whatever. And there were people looking at me like in shame. and I just couldn't believe it. How can you end a film? How can you end a story like this? But yeah, it just looked. It's shit. It's a shit film. Even Nicolas Cage couldn't save that. I mean, it'd be towards the bottom of the list if he had featured. But yeah, he doesn't do bad very often, and it stands out when he does. And that was War of the Worlds for me.
Matt, are you going to echo Stu's sentiment on that one?
No, not at all. I don't think it was terrible. I didn't think it was like the worst thing since sliced bread. I just think that the ending absolutely destroys everything that you've witnessed for the last what feels like about 4 hours. But that's not Tom Cruise's fault. You know what I mean? That's not even the director's fault, I suppose, if they wanted to be faithful to the source material. Do you know what I mean? So I don't think War of the Worlds is dreadful. I think it's got some really some tense scenes in it, and there's some heart in it. It's okay. It's absolutely fine, but it's not dreadful. What is dreadful is Night and Day, basically with Cameron Diaz. It's completely filler, zero thriller, and absolutely vanilla. Like it just exists, and there's nothing special about it, but there's nothing absolutely dreadful about it, which is its biggest crime. It just exists in the ether. It's
that's almost worse, though, isn't it? Because it's utterly forgettable.
It's you know what I mean. It's a Leicester or a Derby, or you know what I mean. It's not even got a Hooters like Nottingham. You know what I mean. So I don't know what else to say about it.
I've never seen it. I've got no intention of ever watching it at all.
Yeah, same. Yeah. No, it's it never appealed, and all the reviews have been exactly what Matt have said. It's a film that was made. That's not enough, is it really? So no. So off the back of that, what is it about Tom Cruise that you dislike? What does he do or doesn't do in his films that puts you off him? There's got to be something. Like, no one's perfect. So, Matt, what's a negative about Cruise?
He's just a bit safe.
Hmm.
He's just a bit too, and I don't think it's pigeonholing, and I don't think it's because he doesn't want to step outside of his comfort zone. But in order to stay at that absolute top level in terms of box office, sometimes you've got to protect the brand and avoid putting in a stinker. Like he'll do these little cameos in like Tropic Thunder and like Austin Powers and stuff like that,
Mm.
just to do something a little unusual. But then that would go against the Cruise brand. So I think his biggest detriment is he's a bit too safe, really. And I like to see him branch out and do something a bit more niche in order to kind of diversify and get a bit more of a cult following. There's a reason why Nick Cage has a cult following, and Tom Cruise doesn't really have a cult following because like most cults, they need lunatics to follow them, and lunatics only like certain things.
Yeah, that's very true. Stu, what do you think?
I mean, there's not much I don't like about him. So I'm going to start to question myself now. I think I think it goes to that kind of thing as well, that he never does anything like controversially awful. I mean, you don't play like a paedophile or a rapist or something like that, or like something like really nasty. Playing a Collateral, yeah, fine. Hitman Fire, whatever. It's not nasty, is he? It's just a job.
He was still likable in that film, wasn't he? Though that's the thing. Yeah.
And who didn't want that hair?
Yeah.
Who didn't want to dye the hair grey for no reason at all? But yeah, just that even like we've said before, David Tennant was a very psychotic rapist in Secret Smile before he got cast on Doctor Who, or he was cast and he came out like the week before, and then obviously he did things in the MCU as well, but where he wasn't exactly a nice man. And if you got someone like that at that level who can diversify and do different things, I just wish he'd do something like that, just to say that he has. He showed his comedy side, like Matt said in the films that he listed there. It showed that amazingly he's not a bad singer either. To be fair, so I think that's the only thing that's missing. Just do something a bit controversial.
Yeah, I can agree with that completely. My issue is there's almost a level of faux sincerity with him. It all feels a little bit fake at times. I don't buy him as like an everyman kind of thing. So like War of the Worlds, which has been mentioned, him in that role as he's supposed to be a father of two kids who's, a working stiff trying to get by. I don't buy that. And it might just be a bleed through from his private life. So obviously, that weird OTT thing he did in the interview with Oprah where he's jumping around. And he does bring some of that to his on-screen performances. And I feel like there's a bit of a friction between the two and it doesn't quite work. And that might come down to the fact that he always does these cocky, brash maverick, or like the performance in Risky Business where he was a bit of a cocky prick. It just doesn't quite work for me. And like, if you look at someone like Nicolas Cage, they're both actors who are very big, larger than life guys. But could Cruise have done Pig? I don't think he could, if I'm honest.
No.
So I think that there's a slight disconnect for me in those terms. So taking his acting out of it now, what's the best film you've seen of his? He doesn't have to be amazing in it. It just has to be a great film that you absolutely loved. My answer is Edge of Tomorrow. I have spoke several times on this podcast about being a big fan of Emily Blunt, and she's fucking wonderful in that movie. You might know it as, was it Live, Die, Repeat, I think, was the other title of it. For some reason, there's two different titles on either side of the pond. That's a film I absolutely love. It's one it's got action, it's got heart, it actually makes you think about what's going on because of that time loopness to it, which is probably going to put Stu off watching it if he hasn't already.
No, for that reason.
But it's such a good film. Emily Blunt is fantastic in it. Tom Cruise is there, Like, he's good, but I wouldn't say he's amazing. He wouldn't draw you to it, but that performance from Emily Blunt is superb. So that's what keeps me going back. It's such a good film. It's definitely worth a watch, and you would enjoy it, Stu, if you gave it the chance, even with that time loopness to it. I think. Stu, what's your favourite film of his?
I remember when that film came out, and then it was rebranded over here with the alternative name and released again.
Yeah, well, yeah, weird.
Yeah, mine was A Few Good Men. Being a fucking superb film. And like I was saying earlier about him playing next to people who get nominated for things, that that monologue from Jack Nicholson is just, I mean, it's 10, 15 years or so when last time I watched it, but I just watched a clip of it the other day when I knew we were doing this, just to remind myself about it. And you don't take your eyes off it, do you? You're just completely gripped. It's just absolutely wonderful film. And for what's really a glorified courtroom drama with a few idiots running around, it's astonishingly good. Astonishingly good. I need to watch it again. Really, I'm pretty sure it's got to be somewhere for a film that good. You'd think it'd be on Netflix or something.
Yeah, absolutely. It probably is. It's worth checking just to watch, seeing where it's available. Matt, what's your favourite film?
In order for variety, and whilst Rain Man is his best performance and arguably probably the critics' best film, for me, he's barely in it, but Tropic Thunder is sensational. And Tropic Thunder, you've got to be in a mood to watch Rain Man. You don't like it doesn't. It will lighten obviously towards the end, but you've got to commit to the full thing. Whereas Tropic Thunder, you can watch 20 minutes of it, enjoy it. You can watch the whole thing and enjoy it. It's very, very funny, but it's got its controversy, and it's just it was just a film that absolutely didn't need to be made, but I'm so glad that it did. Like there was no, it doesn't at the time didn't, at least in my understanding, it didn't really fit into any like genre or need and demand for Tropic Thunder. But I'm just so glad that it exists, and Tom Cruise plays a small part in what is overall a very funny movie.
Absolutely. So what is the film that you think is underrated? So it can either be one that you think is widely disparaged, but you think it's good, or it can be one that people just have been sleeping on it a little bit. Matt, what's his underrated hit that we should be watching?
Well, it would have been Edge of Tomorrow, to be fair. I remember coming out of the cinema, seeing it, and thinking that this was one of the most original things I've seen in a long time. Like, I remember thinking I couldn't compare it to anything else. It felt like a massive breath of fresh air at the time. What didn't feel like so much of a breath of fresh air, but I did really enjoy it, was Oblivion. I thought it was perfectly serviceable as a film. It wasn't spectacular, but it was, it was your standard 7/8 out of 10 Tom Cruise film. Do you know what I mean? Like, it didn't push the boundaries, but it was absolutely fine. But I barely think anyone's seen it.
No, I remember it kind of got shat on a little bit by the critics as well. It was quite. It was into the cinemas and gone, like, it felt like in a heartbeat. But yeah, that's a decent film that probably does deserve a bit more respect on its name.
And that's saying it like that Cameron Diaz film, which I've already forgotten the name of.
Night and Day.
Oblivion. Look, I saw the trailer for that and thought, no, pointless. Never going to see. But you kind of twisting my arm to go and watch this now, even with my time loop hatred.
Honestly, Stu, you know what my feelings are towards multiverses, time traveling, and the like. Edge of Tomorrow it's so different. It's sensational. Honestly, it's absolutely fantastic. Like, it has no right to be if you was just to think about what it's about. But I think it's its execution that makes it so special.
You know what? Actually, after watching Lightyear a couple of days ago and the timey shit in that, I kind of need something else to refresh me, because that was a bad film. So I'm going to actually go against the grain, because what was that comedy that you made me watch, and that was all right as well?
Palm Springs.
Yeah, that was quite good. So maybe I can be tempted round. Yeah, I just had a look. A Few Good Men is not available to stream for free, but you can rent it on for $2.49 everywhere, which seems pittance, really. Mine would have been for this actual answer. would have been Collateral, because like you already said, no one talks about it ever. From either side, for the Jamie Foxx side either. I think you probably, if you played the soundtrack to People Don't Molyneux, they've played it in the background before the game for about 10 years. But no one will know what it actually is.
Yeah.
And it's from that soundtrack. And again, very, very, very good film that doesn't get the praise. I mean, Rock of Ages is not underrated by me or by anyone who knows, because I've blurted on about it ever since it came out. But yeah, it would have been Collateral all day long.
That's fair. My answer is going to be a film with Tom Cruise and Cameron Diaz, but it's not that one. It's Vanilla Sky.
Oh, geez.
And I really enjoyed it, and I think a lot of people slept on it. I think a lot of people shat on it early doors. I don't know why, because I do feel like there's actually layers to it. About there's a story about the superficiality of society, about friendship and about love, and obviously it was a remake of a Spanish-speaking film, if I remember correctly, because I think Penelope Cruz was in both versions of it. But I really enjoyed that movie, and everyone seemed to absolutely hate it. But it's a solid 7 out of 10. It's nothing exceptional, but it's a good, interesting film with depth to, which I don't think you get a lot of, especially in Tom Cruise films, because they do tend to be your more popcorn fodder. So I felt like it was something he did that was slightly different, going against his usual grain, and I really enjoyed it. I do think people probably needs to give it a reevaluation, because everyone seems to hate it, but I really enjoyed it. I think it's an underrated hit of his, personally.
Yeah, that might be one where you watch it when you're a bit older and it kind of hits better. Because, I mean, it wasn't going to be on my worst performance. It was going to be on my worst film, if that was even a category, straight away, because I hated it. I absolutely hated it with a passion. And it's like PTSD now, bringing back bad memories. But, I watched it that once, and I might watch it with my cousin, Kim. I can't remember. It's been so long. And walking out of it thinking that was the biggest pile of shit I've seen for years. So, who knows? I'm not going to say I'm going to give it another chance. But if it like re-emerges out of nowhere and it's like the number one film on Netflix for whatever reason, then maybe.
I think I watched it when I was at uni, so I was doing all of the mise en scène and all that crap that comes with it. So I think I probably watched it with that more wanky film student head on than just a general watch it to enjoy it kind of thing. And I enjoyed it for that side of things. So I want to know then, right, so Tom Cruise has been around since 1981. His career started the year before Cage's. When Cage was in the Fast Times at Ridgemont High, even Blink and You'll Miss It debut. Cage has got over 100 credits to his name. Tom Cruise has got less than 50. There aren't many actors who have got that level of longevity to their career with so few credits to their name. Can you explain to me why Tom Cruise is at the very top of his field, even though he's got, I think it was 46 credits when I looked earlier to his acting name? Matt, what do you think?
I think, and this is purely going through from the opinion of his peers, really, in the profession, is that I think it's widely regarded that he's the Springsteen of Hollywood, in that he's the hardest working man in Hollywood, in that every single film he's putting the time in, every country he's going to, doing their version of Graham Norton, doing their version of GMTV or This Morning Britain. Like, I think he gets his name out there so much that he's always in public perception. And when you're always in public perception as much as he is, mixed with the fact that he never picks a role that really is going to be his undoing and be a massive flop, I think that gives you longevity, because you're always relevant. You're always in. So, for example, Graham Norton, right? Apart from maybe BBC America or whatever it's called, it's a very British thing. And there's a certain level of, you watch it and he's on it, and there's a bit of a shock that he's on this smaller program in comparison to, world TV. So he's in your living room as opposed to your big screen now. He becomes more accessible. He becomes more relatable. And I think he's just always there. He's just always been there. He doesn't need to pump out 3-4 films a year to be there because he's always on your TV. He's always on your radio. He's always on the side of you, the bus. He's just got a constant presence. And I think that's why he's been able to maintain success.
Yeah, I think my argument was going to be pretty similar. I had a look at like the top grossing actors over the last decade or so, and I think was it 6 or 7 years out of the last 10, he was in the top 10. He's always around, even though he might not have done more than like one film every other year. He's always there, just sort of hanging around in the background. There's like the spectre of Cruise. He's always hanging over Hollywood. And there was this story recently about the guy who directed Top Gun Maverick. I can't remember his name, but he pitched this idea to Tom Cruise about doing Maverick. And Cruise turned around and said, right, okay, wait there. He got on his mobile phone, spoke to whoever, and just said, we're going to make Top Gun 2. And then the wheels were in motion the day after. So he does have that work ethic that's very much, that's something I want to do. Let's get it done. And like, if he's there at the inception of Top Gun 2, he's there at the very end of Top Gun 2. That's like a 2-3 year project from production, pre-production, from the actual film, post-production. That's why I don't think he's got a massive amount of credits to his name. But you know he's there because he's the one involved. He's the one who's promoting this film. And then it comes out and he's everywhere, and he's got the biggest grossing film of the year so far, I believe. I don't think anything else has hit $1 billion this year. I don't think there's anything else in Spider-Man, if I remember correctly. So it's just incredible. Absolutely incredible. Stu, what do you think?
Yeah. I mean, I just looking, he's got out of 50 films now with Maverick. He's producer of 25. So.
Bloody hell. And it's not just exec producing.
Yeah,
so,
it's
yeah,
produced
incredible.
by all the Mission Impossibles, all the Jet Reacher ones, Last Samurai, which never been mentioned. So yeah, there's a lot of them where he's just a producer anyway. Things like Narc. Yeah, just all encompassing, doing everything. Like I said earlier on, when we said about what enamors you to him, and it's the fact that he does go balls deep into everything. He doesn't just turn up say his lines, and get back in his fancy little trailer. He's there doing everything. And if you're putting that much commitment into a project, then you need a break. You can't be doing that with everything. So that's probably why. And fair play to him.
Definitely. So what role should Tom Cruise have taken on? If you could replace any actor with Tom Cruise in any film, what role would you be replacing Cruise with? Stu?
I don't think in something like The Hangover, like something completely stupid, like a dude bro film, because we've seen him do comedy, like we mentioned already, in tiny little bits, but never that I can think of full on comedic role for a whole film or a genre of films like that, like the what was Hot Tub Time Machine, just stupid shit like that. If he'd been in something like that, just completely out of the blue, just a complete change of pace, change of direction, just turns up, producer role on something like that, or Juice Bigelow or something like that. Because I think he could do it. I think he'd be really good in it as well. We've seen that he don't take himself too seriously, so I think it's a missed opportunity more than anything else. And I'd love to see.
I quite like that. I mean, it's not the answer I'd gone completely in an opposite direction. But I love the idea of him just doing this kind of wacky, stupid comedy out of nowhere at the age of nearly 60, just completely turning face and doing something else. I kind of love that answer. That's brilliant. Matt, what would you like to have seen him do instead?
I don't think it really would have worked in terms of the timeline or time or something, but I would have liked to have seen him play the American guy in Snatch. I think he's too. He would have been too young now. Thinking about it now, they could have made him. They could have made him older, I suppose. But I'd like to basically see him in a British crime film as the American, as the bolshy yuppie American that gets gently and not so gently taken the piss out of, and I think that would have fit really well in Snatch, or something like Lock, Stock, or anything with Guy Ritchie like behind the camera, or something like that. I think it would be you'd never play a leading role in something like this. It's not Green Street, for fuck's sake, but it's. Do you know what I mean? I think he would actually fit into that world really well. I think it'd be quite amusing to see him in that.
Absolutely, that's a great call. I've gone very route one on my answer, and I think there's only two people who could actually play this role. One of them is the person who played it, and the other one is Tom Cruise, and that would have been Tony Stark, Iron Man.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that character is very much this man who's been around for a good few years, who's made a lot of money, who has, almost gone to hell and back. Probably not quite so much for Cruise as it was for Robert Downey, but I do feel like he would have been a good replacement for him. And I do think originally he was like one of the names touted for that role. And I feel like he would have worked that perfectly well. I think he'd have been a good alternative had RDJ not been available for it. On the flip side of that coin, though, what film should they have passed up on, or should Tom Cruise have passed up on? My answer is The Mummy.
Yeah.
I feel like Tom Cruise wanted some of that, that new shared universe franchise money, and he bet on the wrong horse with The Mummy. I didn't make it all the way through. I got bored quite early doors and gave up. It was a stinker. Just did absolutely nothing for me whatsoever. So yeah, The Mummy. Stu?
Yeah, The Mummy. And for the same reason, the fact that he hasn't been in DC Universe, he hasn't been in the MCU, he hasn't done any of these, he hasn't done a Bond series other than Mission Impossible, which is his anyway. He hasn't been a part of a bigger kind of collective, has he? So I think that was it Monsterverse that they were trying to call it, or was that that was the Godzilla one?
It was the Universal Monster Universe.
Yeah, and it obviously failed again, like it failed the first time round. So yeah, easy answer.
Matt, are you going to make it a trifecta?
Sadly not. I actually think War of the Worlds didn't need Tom Cruise, or War of the Worlds needed to be grittier. It was the most polished end of the world that I can remember. Do you know what I mean? And that's an element that you get with Tom Cruise, is that you get polished. You don't get gritty realism a lot of the time. I know we've talked about he's like emotionally in Rain Man, he is relatable, but it's not like gritty realism. And War of the Worlds needed to be a grittier, nastier, dirtier film than it was. I, for that reason, it's flawed, because it needed to be a little bit more 10 Cloverfield Lane than it was.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. For the end of the world, the bin men shouldn't have just been around. It was all too nice and ordered, wasn't it? Yeah, that's a good point.
What's got a worse ending, that or Signs?
That's a good point, actually. That's a very good point.
That's really a question.
Yeah, that is, yeah. I think I was angrier at Signs.
Yeah.
I was angry at Signs only because it was a window into the life in my house, with the amount of fucking glasses that get left around everywhere.
I hope Sam doesn't listen to this episode.
He's open. We'll soon know if we have her as a faithful listener or not.
So what is it, something you would like to see Tom Cruise do in the future? Would it be same old? Will it be something completely new? What do you fancy seeing from Cruise coming up? Matt?
Well, we've kind of touched on a kind of parallel universe with Cage in some respects, some ways massively different. But no, I'd like to see him play Tom Cruise. I'd like to see him ham up his own his own myth and his own ethos.
Mm.
I'd like to see him gently take the piss out of Scientology. I'd like to see him take the piss out of his height and everything else that comes with it. I think, if Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent gets the recognition that it should, it could open the door for more of these kind of meta, gentle piss takes of one's own self. And I think one about Cruise would be really fun.
Mm. He would be a perfect subject for that kind of film, wouldn't he, as well?
Oh yeah, totally.
He really would.
I mean, that could be a kind of the entry into the shared universe film if you had the unbearable weight of mini talent.
Yeah, I like it.
And then you do a Cage Cruise crossover with someone else. I don't know, like Kevin Hart or whatever. Probably not good enough, has he? Say someone like De Niro, put De Niro in there as well. So I'm guessing
the original rumor was supposed to be that the film was written about Daniel Day-Lewis. So to get like a proper stalwart actor in there with those two, I think that'd be excellent. So chuck him in as well.
Has Daniel Day-Lewis ever laughed though in his life?
No, but I think that's why you would be perfect for it.
Yeah, it'd be like Roy Keane.
Yeah, it would. So what would you like to see him do next, Stu?
I want that now.
Oh, you want that as well?
Yeah. I want a shared universe piss take thing.
Yeah, okay. I'd gone similar-ish in that something that Cage has already done. I'd really like to see him do a Willy's Wonderland type performance. So both in the fact that it's like this bonkers off-the-wall B-movie and also this no talking. We're so used to seeing him being something of a motor-mouth show-off. I'd quite like to see it go completely the other way and just have him be this silent badass. I think I'd quite like to see him lean into that side of things and just do something completely different to what we're used to from him now. I think that'd be really interesting as well because he does have that persona, and could he still bring the larger than life persona across in a silent role? I think that'd just be quite interesting to see if someone else could pull it off as well as Cage did. They could even do it in Willy's Wonderland in the warehouse restaurant and just do a sequel to that. I'd be well up for it. That'd be brilliant. Right then, so that's this podcast done. Next week, the podcast is going out on the 4th of July, and Tom Cruise was in a film called Born on the 4th of July, so you might see where this is going. We're going to be talking about Cocktail. It is available to stream on Disney Plus and Prime in the UK, but check out justwatch.com to see if it's streaming anywhere near you. Please make sure you subscribe to the podcast, and we would love a review on whatever platform you listen to us on. Make sure you've got us on the Twitter and Insta at CageFightingPod, and any emails to cagefightingpod@gmail.com. So for this week, Matt, would you like to say goodbye?
Take it easy, everybody. Look after yourselves, check in on your pals, and have a great week.
Stu, would you like to say goodbye?
Yeah, try everyone, enjoy the weather while you can. It'll piss down again soon.
It's goodbye from me, and remember, be excellent to each other.